placemaking and investment director at PFP Capital, which is the fund and asset manager for the Places for People group. So we do large-scale residential-led regeneration. We have about 700 million pounds of assets under management, and we really are all about places that work for people at all levels. And so we're trying to really future-proof that as much as we can in an industry that is very fixated on these illiquid assets and trying to be much more fluid and flexible. I think I agree entirely with lots of those points that you were making, Andrew, and I actually did a TED talk a couple of years ago about a lot of this stuff. And so it's been frustrating for me to go over some of those old stats that I pulled out then and see how little has changed. You're pulling on that point that, you know, women having to be exceptional. And, you know, I quoted this Taylor Swift song, which is The Man, which I love. I'm so sick of running as fast as I can, wondering if I'd get there quicker if I was a man. And I think this is something that for the women who are in real estate, that kind of constant exhaustion of having to be exceptional just to be considered at a level with men. Madeleine Albright said, there's a lot of room in this world for mediocre men, but not a lot of room for mediocre women. And I think that is one of the inherent tensions, actually not just for women, but for anybody who, you know, doesn't necessarily fit, whether it's through ethnicity or background or whatever. But specifically on women, the BPF and RSCS data shows that only 14% of UK real estate is female. And actually it's only 9% at a senior director level. So it's really, really critical to have things like Women Talk Real Estate. So when that visibility point, when you have conference organizers saying, oh, well, we asked women and they said no, or there weren't any, you have this kind of database that goes, yes, there are, there's lots, there's breadth of experience and expertise. I think it's one of the uncomfortable conversations that we have to have internationally at the moment, in the kind of Black Lives Matter and all these kind of movements which have so much positivity behind them, but, you know, in the kind of era post-Trump, this inherent backlash that comes with that of people who have been the majority in the norm and feeling threatened. One of my favorite quotes is by Franklin Leonard, and he said, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. And I think that's the thing for the people for whom the norm is that they just have this, you know, they're not even aware of the level of privilege they have. That's something really difficult. And I think one of the things we have to grapple with is that targets aren't enough. So I just did a bit of a scoop through my kind of Financial Times app last night. And those are headlines on the right of that slide there from the past 18 months, you know, that show despite all of the, you know, effort, the Hampton Alexander Review in the UK, a huge focus on more diverse boards coming not just from, you know, the UK, but actually internationally, and real pressure to get past this groupthink, that actually we are tending to miss targets, however well-intentioned they are, and that there's still so much to do. And that quite often, I think that, you know, there's usually a headline in the Wall Street Journal every year about there being more men called Pete or Steve or John than there are women. But actually just that the group of women who are making it as CEOs of FTSE companies remain this very, very small number of exceptional women, as you said, Andrea, but without the pull through behind. And that's where I think we really need to focus our attention, that mid-market retention level. There's been a couple of books that have come out this week I haven't read yet. One was called by Pregnant Then Screwed, a lady called Jolie Brearley, who's looking at the kind of parenthood penalty. I think that's something that's come into the spotlight a lot through COVID, the higher volume of women who've had to sacrifice work in order to do childcare through this kind of crisis, this pandemic. But also the thing that's really bugged me just this morning, reading the news about the disappearance of a young woman in London walking through a kind of a public square. And there's been a YouGov survey that says 97% of young women aged 18 to 24 have been sexually harassed in a public space. 52% have been sexually harassed at work. Now, those are absolutely shocking statistics. And so when we're talking about real estate, and I bang on in my data about placemaking and public realm and safety, you know, the concept of gender mainstream, but actually it's not just about providing more toilets, although that's really important because women do need to go to loo 3 times more than men, but actually it's about making those spaces safe for everybody. And I find it absolutely shocking that 97% of young women have, you know, by the age of 24 have already been harassed in a public space. And again, this might not even occur. There's some very encouraging conversations on Twitter from men saying, what can I do if I'm walking behind a woman at night to make her feel safe? And, you know, it is as simple as cross the road. But I think recognizing that women carry, you know, that we all learn at a very young age to carry our keys between our knuckles. So if you are kind of jumped on, that you can maybe try and defend yourself. And this is something that I remember my boyfriend in an early age being really shocked that I would have to think about. So I think it's just that understanding the different pressures that come around everybody. So for me, that point really does come around real estate. I think real estate has a bigger picture influence on our public realm, on our spaces, and especially as we're redesigning them now. And being aware that it's not pandering to women to actually just talk about the different experiences of safety in public spaces that we have, and that we should be thinking about that in the way that we fund and design them.